Well, hello, it's that time again. It's Maxine English here, and today I'm interviewing Kevin Wright. He is the Property Ninja. Now, he is one of our newest members when it comes down to the empowerment event. And, you know, let me say, the things that he's actually already said to Bradley on his interview the other day was absolutely amazing. So I thought, well, today we'll dig in a little bit deeper, have it a little bit longer, and actually get you to ask your questions and anything that you want to ask. You know, to find out some information about property, to find out information about the best ways to do things, how to use their money, you know, whatever it is that you think that you perhaps you might need a little bit of help with when it comes down to property. And not only that, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into Kevin and what he's all about as well, and the reasons why he does what he does. So today I'm going to bring you on for Mr. Kevin Wright. You ready for this, guys? Here we come. Oh, look, we've got people in already. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Fantastic, thank you. Fantastic.
Right, so we've got people here already. We've got Yes You Can Inspire to Achieve. Please let us know which one you are. There's enough of you. I need to see who you are. We've also got Malik, and we've also got Adam. He's in the house today.
Excellent.
So yeah, we've got a few people in the house, which is all good. Guys, anything you want to ask, just ask the questions. I know we'll put it to Kevin for you. So Kevin, let's go straight into asking you about property. Yep. Now, you've been in property for a long while. I mean, you did your first refurbishment in 1983.
Correct.
And and how did you find that? I mean, it was your very first one that you did. Is it something that you expected it to be like?
Well, you know, like whenever you try something new, you step outside your comfort zone. That's a fact. So there are always challenges that you didn't expect. It was so long ago now, I can hardly remember it. But yeah. So it was a learning curve, certainly.
So what made you go into property? Of all the things that you could choose, why property?
Well, I got a book as a birthday present from my mum.
Right.
And it was called Property Renovation Profits. Now, I've asked her since. I said, Mum, why did you buy me that book? She said, Love, I can't remember.
Yeah, why?
She said, but I just thought it was something good. Now, I've got to say, you know, my mum changed my life, because without that book, I wouldn't have done what I've done, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So, you know, I'm not sure a mother could have ever had such an influence on her child as she did with that. So, yeah. So I read the book, and you know, now as we know, it's not what you learn; it's what you do with what you learn.
Absolutely. It's all about taking action.
Yeah, so I took action, bought a wreck, did it up, sold it, made some money, bought another one, did the same, and then decided, hang on a minute, I can make a different type of money if I keep them and rent them out. So I did that. So yeah,
you got the bug, didn't you?
I did get the bug, and it's never left.
Well, that's good. That's great. Now I've put Richard up here because Richard's one of our 12 ambassadors underneath for Bradley Chapman, and he's an autistic champion. And he does his broadcastings about being autistic and how his thoughts and feelings, but he's also a property person as well. Okay. He deals with properties and he buys and sells. And, you know, perhaps, Richard, if you listen to, over this broadcast, you'll find out some interesting facts that perhaps can help you as well. So let's talk about, obviously, good old mum. Didn't know why she bought it, but she did. Something you completely never even thought of doing. And most people look at that and go, thanks. So what in that book changed you to actually go, do you know what, I'm actually going to use this?
Well, I mean, I was curious because and maybe that's what she picked up on, because, you know, when I first left home, I took a room in a house. You'd now call them HMOs, but that term wasn't invented back then. And Paul, my landlord, you know, he was a bricklayer by day, but I sort of watched what he did. He was the first person that I'd ever known that was into property, you know, and he used to do exactly what I went on to do, which is buy a wreck, do it up, sell it for a profit, bank the cash. So I guess I was sort of at that young age a bit in awe of him, that he could do that, and I sort of aspired to do something the same. So I guess that was the seed, really. And maybe my mum, you know, neither of us can really remember the origins of it, but I mean, I've still got the book today somewhere. So and now would it be in my?
You're always going to see if you can even find the book. Oh, you never know. So today, what we're going to do is, while Kevin's looking for that book, is that look, he's put it. Oh, wow!
Property renovation profits, 1983 vintage.
Definitely is, yeah.
Well, probably a bit, yeah. In 1983, there we are. You see.
Yeah.
So, so yeah.
Fantastic. So when you obviously such a young, sorry, I can hear myself. Can you turn your volume down just a little bit? I'm going to turn mine down. Yeah, making sure that you can hear me at the same time, though.
Yeah. No worries.
That's it.
Is that any better?
Yeah, it's just all it is. It's up too high. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Okay. So when you obviously mum bought it for you, and you looked at it, you thought, I'll give that a go. You was in awe of Paul, your landlord, you know. And so you actually, did you just go out and just start renovating properties? Did you talk to anyone about it? What did you do? Actually,
I probably did nothing with it for a year or more. I read it and thought, yeah, that's interesting. But I guess I was just starting out on the self-development, journey as well. And I thought, I was just doing a standard job, and I think, no, it's got to be more to life than this. And I think, just one day the book, the sort of inspiration from landlord Paul, it just sort of clicked, and I thought, no, actually, let's see if I can do this. So I started looking for Rex.
And how do you fund that? I mean, did you go try and get a credit card out and just say, look, put it on there?
Well, you probably could have done in those days at the price of property, but actually, you couldn't replicate this now. But I just went to my bank and said, this was before the days of computer says no, which is, there's a phrase that's ingrained itself in the, in UK culture. So, it was when you actually sat down with the bank manager, had a chat, and he said, yeah, I'll back you, Kevin. So I just got a bank loan, borrowed, put some cash that I had, borrowed the rest, to do, to purchase it, do the work, and then just sold it, and made a nice tidy profit. And then, did
you turn around to mum and say, Mum, you bought me the book, this is your fault, lend me this many thousands of pounds?
Yeah, she probably wasn't in a position to do that, but yeah.
So the thing is, it's like,
buy-to-let mortgages didn't exist, HMO mortgage, so all the structure, and education didn't exist. I mean, that book was all there was. There was no, people today are just so much luckier than I was going back then. They can go to property meetings. I mean, there's 200 across the country, running every month. So wherever you live in the UK, you're not going to be far from a property meeting. There's multitude of education programs, some better than others, obviously, but you can get yourself educated. There's plenty of books on property. And of course there's Facebook groups and the internet, and I think if you go back to what was available, and I was probably starting with both hands and both feet tied behind my back compared to what's available now. So really, if someone wants to make a success of property, there's nothing really, no valid reason why they couldn't.
So the only thing that screams at me is, I imagine there's people screaming through the thing right now, and I've heard it many times before when I've been to property events, is love to get into property, but I just don't have the money to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that stops people from going forward.
Yeah.
What would you say to overcome that, apart from getting a loan?
Yeah. Well, it depends how you're going to get into property. Now, there are two basic ways, or two basic things you can do in property. You either control it or you buy it. Now, buying it, I think pretty much most people know how to buy a property. It's a legal process, and there's usually some funding involved there, with a bit of cash from yourself. But it can be quite substantial cash. Now, it depends where you live in the UK. There are certain areas where property is still relatively modestly priced. Usually away from London and the home counties, and with some exceptions. But So, but controlling property, I don't teach or speak or get involved in that, but I understand it. Is where you do lease option agreements, or what's now called rent to rent, these type of things. So there you can get into property, at a much lower starting base, but you're not actually buying property, you're just controlling property that someone else owns. And that, for some people, is a stepping stone from which they grow and go on to buy property. But really, if you're going to have a career in property, whether it's full-time or part-time, you're going to need to be buying property, whether you buy it and sell it and bank the cash, or whether you buy it, hold it and rent it out. Now, typically, if you go just straight down the buy-to-let mortgage route, which is the route that most people will go down, you'd need to put typically a 25% deposit down. So that's a chunk of cash, wherever you are in the country. And also, mortgage lenders don't like, in fact, they prohibit you borrowing the deposit. So you have to prove to them it's your own cash, and they'll want bank statements to substantiate that. So, you couldn't put a deposit on a credit card or a loan, or borrow it from a friend. Possibly you could borrow it from your parents. They would, that's acceptable to mortgage lenders. Now, and that's where the sort of creative finance comes in, that I've been teaching for several years now. So this is where that you find the right type of property and the right kind of seller, and that allows you to buy it with a lower deposit than the normal 25%. Sometimes substantially lower. So sometimes with a 5 or even 10% deposit. So that means that that you can get into property, if you know how to do it, from a much lower starting point with your cash base. And again, when you get into creative finance of the sort I teach, these lenders are not so pedantic about where your deposit comes from. So it's okay to borrow it as long as you can pay it back. And that's on the training that I do. That's I teach people the right type of property, the right type of seller, the right type of finance, and how to structure it so that if you follow it all and you again take action, because it's not what you learn, it's what you do with what you learn. It's that old Stephen Covey thing, isn't it? To know and not to do is not to know. So it's possible, but you do need a few £1,000s. Even in the,
so at least have that behind you to start with.
Yeah, or get access to it.
Yeah.
Some people own a property and they've got sufficient equity in it that they can just rejig the finance on that and pull some cash out. So everyone is, circumstances are different, but you don't need £100,000 in your bank to start off investing in buying property. So you can do it substantially, but you're probably going to need more than a couple of thousand.
Okay. So that's obviously to go in there and get the property and making sure that you've got some kind of deposit. I mean, I know this is how long's a piece of string, but as a general rule, if you've got something like a 3-bedroom house as a general, and the kitchen, the bathroom needs doing and everything needs doing in it, and it's not an absolute wreck, but it needs sorting out. What's the kind of average spend that you're looking at as a generalisation?
Well, again, it varies in different parts of the country because labour rates vary, in different parts of the country. But I mean, some people manage to do a very, and again, also it depends, if you want to do any of the work yourself, and there are two schools of thought on that. Yes, you save money, but you probably take a lot longer. So people really at the very start probably tend to do, if they've got the skills, they would tend to do some of it themselves, and they would get the refurb done at a lower when they're more experienced and scaling up. They realise that it's actually more cost effective to pay skilled tradesmen to do those jobs, and that frees up your time to search for more properties or see the project. But You know, I mean, I see people doing those sort of, the term for it is a cosmetic refurb. So you're improving the inside of the property predominantly, but you're not knocking walls out, extending, and that type of thing. Other people refer to it as also a light refurb as well. So those sort of things, I've seen them done for sort of 5,000, probably up to 25,000, for those sort of things. Yeah. Now, using
it's good to know. It's good to know.
So using some of the creative finance strategies that I teach, with the right property, it's possible to actually borrow the refurb money too. So you just have to put your deposit down, and you can borrow the refurb money as part of the loan. Sorry, I interrupted you. You had a question.
No, it's absolutely fine, because it's all good information for people that actually want to get into some kind of property. Is they go, okay, so I know how much money I have, but I don't really know how much I need. And it's very much, as you said, like, how long's a piece of string? It's very much, it depends on where you are in the country, how much labour is going to be, what you can do yourself. But it's nice to give the audience out there a bit of an idea, even if it's like a ballpoint figure, and they can just work around that. So when you was actually doing your refurbs, what would you say was a few of the hardest things that you had to get over? I mean, did you come up against any really big challenges or anything like that?
Well, I mean, if you're taking an old house and pulling it apart, you're gonna uncover things that need rectifying that you hadn't banked on. So and it's always good to have to build in a contingency, fund, and often it can be sort of 10 or 15% of the refurb. Just add on that much as a contingency for the things you never expected to happen. So, for example, when you take the wallpaper off in a particular room, half the plaster comes off the wall with it. So you weren't expecting that, but now you've got to take it all off and get it replastered. So there are all sorts of things like that. So maybe
Richard's got a question, but Richard's got a question, but I'm going to ask you, Richard, I'm going to ask him about that in a minute, because we're going to go down to more of the finances side of it after. Okay. So we'll talk about that after. So, so you overcome those, obviously, when all these extras that come up, what would you say is, geez, all these questions I've got, you just think you've got 1,000 questions in your head, and which one do you ask first? When you done your first investment, you got your money back, you got your extra money, you went on and bought more properties. Would you say the best investment, as you said, to buy outside London and the home counties to start with, and is it worth actually buying up north or down south, or would you just say just buy where you are so you're close to home and just get things done slowly?
It can be all of those, to be honest.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So one aspect is, what are you looking for? Are you looking for the yield that you get on the rent, or are you looking for the capital growth? Because it's very, very difficult to find both in the same property. So typically, if you buy in London and the surrounding counties, you've got excellent prospects for capital growth historically, but you've also got a very low yield. I mean, you could end up with just a 2% yield, on a London property. So you make next to nothing out of it month to month on the rent, but your future growth prospects are substantial, particularly in London. Whereas you mentioned the north. So if you go north, you could find that you get a fantastic yield, and there are again, right property, rented the right way, double-digit yields. But the capital growth potential is significantly lower. So it's very, very difficult to find one property that will give you, great capital growth potential and a great yield. So you need to pick which is your priority, and that's going to influence, what part of the country you buy in. Now, there was another part you said, I can't quite remember what you said on that.
Oh, what about
you can't either.
No, it's just so much information.
Yeah,
that's fine. Right, okay. So you've got two businesses, both running around the property side of it.
Yes.
Now, obviously, you do when it comes down to doing the properties and going into properties and renovating them, but you also do the training side of the business. You also do the finance side of the business. There is just so much that you get into on this side. And Richard, this is where your questions come in a second. So at the event, you're going to be talking about the training side. Now, you run courses all around the country?
Yeah, I run 3-day workshops. Now, let's be clear. It's on property finance specifically. So it's 3 days on all the intricacies of creative property finance. So I run them in 4 cities in the UK: London, Leeds, Bristol, and Birmingham. Yeah.
Brilliant. So I'm going to go on to Richard's question, and let's go down what he asked. So he wanted to know about development loans.
Okay. Yeah. They exist. Development loans are available for people doing bigger projects. So if you're doing a new build, you're just buying a plot of land, or you're buying a property with a property on it, and you knock the property down and you build out of the ground, development loans are available for that. They're also available for significant conversions. So let's say you had a block of small block of offices, 2 or 3 stories, and you were going to convert them into flats. And that's a very popular
HMOs and all that, yeah.
Yeah, because we've got an oversupply in the UK, oversupply of commercial properties, undersupply of residential properties. So it makes sense to convert unused commercial properties to residential. So that's what development loans are used for. They're rarely used for refurbs. Refurbs are bridging finance. So smaller projects, or where they're not necessarily the smaller in terms of the value of the purchase, but the proportion of or percentage value of the work being done compared to the value of the property, it would be bridging finance. So typically development loans would be, you'd be spending 50 to 100% of what you paid for the site or the property on what you're doing with it, but on refurbs, it's probably no more than 25 to 30% as an absolute maximum, and that defines it as bridging, not development. Yeah.
Fantastic. So there you go, Richard. I hope that helps.
The question.
I'm sure it does, because Richard's very much into property, and he wants to get into it, and he wants to do more of property. Yep. And he's been going to a few courses and stuff like that, but it's always good to find out other information.
Yeah.
So question for you. So when it comes down to your financial advice, now you've been giving financial advice since 1992.
Yes. And
you've been a qualified financial advisor for many, many years. And you've helped so many people. Now, when you talk to people about the advice and the money side of it, you want people, or help people, to grow their portfolios quickly and effectively. What would you say is the best strategy to do that?
Now, there's a question. One of the other trainers that I work with, a guy called David Clouter. Now, he identified over 150 ways to make money out of property.
Wow. So,
it's a massively diverse genre. And I guess that, the starting point is, what do you feel comfortable doing? So, there's going to be a number of those 150 different ways to make money out of property that just sit way outside your comfort zone. So, for example, if you're, there's, in fact, I was at a conference yesterday speaking about serviced accommodation, which is, short-term letting. You rent by the night, not by, 6 months or 12 months, ASTs as you normally do. Now that's very hands-on. So, if you don't want to be involved in in checking people in, arranging for cleaners, dealing with people's questions. I mean, yes, you can, if you scale it to a certain degree, you can outsource all of that, but that's very hands-on. So it's less about renting property and it's more about hospitality. So it's much more akin to hotel management. Now you might just find that's too hands-on and you just don't have the appetite for it. So you'd much rather have a single tenant who you probably don't hear from 1 month to the next. They just pay the rent. So it's really about, it's a process of elimination. Sometimes you've got to look at all these different strategies and eliminate the ones that you just think, oh, I couldn't be bothered to do that. Oh, that'd be so much hassle. And you'll end up with a strategy. Now, there's one of the other training organizations, they have a 70-20-10 suggestions model. So your main property strategy should occupy 70% of your time. You should have a secondary strategy occupying 20% of your time, and the other 10% is research, where you're researching something that you might want to get into. I mean, what I notice with, pretty much everyone is it is a journey and no one is static. So you'd see people that were doing a 2 up, 2 down refurb 5 years ago, and now they're doing a big office to residential conversion. So people typically would grow. They would take on bigger and bigger projects as their confidence grows, as their access to finance grows, as their bank balance grows. They would gravitate to ever larger projects rather than just stick doing the same thing, exactly the same thing with no personal growth. So I think it's finding the level that's right for you at the moment, finding a strategy that you can sit comfortably doing. It's not a question of whether it stretches you or not. Anything new is always going to stretch you. It's just whether you enjoy it. Now, you don't enjoy anything every minute of the day because there are always stresses and challenges and everything else. But if overall you enjoy the process, then it's probably the right strategy for you.
That's great.
And that's a personal journey, really.
No, it's great information. So if you had someone that's never actually done property but would like to get into it, and it's the first time they've gone, do you know what, it's something I've been thinking about, I've really decided that I want to do it, would you get them to start off with a 2 up, 2 down, a flat? Would you do it in a HMO? What was it you'd say your starter house should be?
Well, first of all, again, decide whether you want to buy to sell or buy to hold. And yeah, something small like a flat, 2 up, 2 down, that type of thing. So the other point of that is, if you mess it up, you might lose some money, but you're not gonna lose your shirt, as the saying goes. So if you jump straight into like an 8-bedroom HMO, you could be just taking on too much, and it's too big a leap. It's too many rungs up the ladder in one bound. I see a lot of people really impatient to get on and do some big stuff in property. But if you want to get into property, it shouldn't be a 5-minute wonder. It should be something that's going to consume you for a good part of your future life. So the enthusiasm to just go on in leap and bounds is understandable, but a bit of caution there. And just say, okay, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's trying to build on modest successes that actually carry you forward, rather than going 2 steps forward and then 5 steps back that you've got to try and recover from, because they take a lot of a real big reverse, because you just did something that was beyond your current capabilities. takes an awful long time to recover from, you know. And I've seen people do both. I've seen people make consistent, steady progress, doing bigger and better deals, you know, each time or each year. And I've also seen people have some spectacular reverses because they took on too much too quick. So I think, you know, the watchword there is, you know, don't be keen to progress and be keen to learn, but don't be in such a mad rush that you know, I mean, you shouldn't be you shouldn't be an all or nothing thing. So, you know, you make a massive profit or you lose everything. So just a bit more prudence, really.
Yeah. So what is the biggest risk that people, sorry, the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes down to buying a property and also getting finance together?
Well, if they're buying stuff to improve, underestimating the cost of improving it, of doing the work, and overestimating what it will be worth once you've done the work. So I think those are the biggest things where, you know, they get carried away in the momentum, and it costs them more than they thought it would do, and it's worth less than they thought it was going to be worth once they've done. So just being realistic with your costings and your values. Yeah. So there's a phrase called the hope value, and this, you know, it refers to what you hope it will be worth once you've done the work. So, you know, again, it's due diligence, really. So get so, you know, good quality due diligence, you know, and underestimate rather than overestimate. And if the deal still stacks and it goes a bit better than you thought, then you might end up with, you know, a bit more than you really thought. But again, you know, finance is the key, and that's why, you know, I've been running my Ninja Investor program since 2013, because, you know, with pretty much any of these 150 ways to make money out of property, if you can't finance it, the deal doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm just going to say to ladies and gentlemen that have just joined us, it's very much, we've got Kevin right here. Now, he's the newest member of the main headline speakers for the empowerment event that we've got going on the 2nd and 3rd of February. And it's going to be at the Islet Hotel in Earl's Court in London. Now, tickets are from £24.50 and they can go right up to VIP at £198.50, where you can come and meet all the speakers out the back in the green room and come and actually ask your questions. Because at the end of the day, we want you to have fun, we want you to enjoy it, we want you to learn. It's all about you coming with the right mindset, bringing your pen and pad, and actually taking action after. So just here, talking to Kevin about property and about finance and how to finance property. Now, Richard's got a quick question here. Now, Richard's going to be starting his first property. He's been looking into it for the last couple of years. He's just asked a question. He wants to go into this one first. 5-bed, 7-bed HMO, 20-bed HMOs, multi-lets, flats, parking close to airport, and an Airbnb.
I admire your ambition, Richard.
There's a but in there.
Yeah. Now, it's a question of not what you want to do, but what you can finance. Now, and it doesn't matter if you can finance the work. So, you know, if you can do the creative finance that I teach, that allow you to buy and convert this sort of stuff. But if you're going to hang on to it at the back end, you need to be able to mortgage it. Now, again, there's a sort of a progression. Now, most mortgage lenders would expect you to start quite modestly, with a single let or a small multi-let up to about 4 tenants, if you've got no landlord experience whatsoever. So leaping into, you know, big 7 and even 20-bed HMOs, you're gonna really struggle to find a lender to back that. You know, I always try to look on the positive side of things, but you know, sometimes you know, as a trainer and a broker, you've just got to be a bit more realistic and say, hang on a minute, you know, it's probably beyond your capability to get this funded with it, to get a mortgage lender to back you until you've shown the
Previous experience.
You can cope with being a landlord. Here's a lender's concern. You jump into a 20-bedroom HMO and they don't even know whether you like being a landlord or not.
Yeah.
So and likewise the Airbnb thing. And actually this is exactly what I was talking to a serviced accommodation conference in Heathrow yesterday. I was doing a talk on exactly how you fund those. Now, the issue there is that, if you've got an AST, which is a 6 or 12 month letting agreement, the tenant pays you a fixed amount of money every month for the right to occupy that property, whether that's the whole property or a room within that property in terms of an HMO. So from a lender's point of view, they've got certainty on the rental income, and when they've got that, they know how much they can afford to lend you so that you will pay it back every month and not get into arrears. Now, with Airbnb short-term letting, there isn't that certainty. So on a modest level, there are some small obscure building societies that would let you rent a flat or a single property on an Airbnb short-term letting basis without any experience. But to scale up and do bigger projects or multiple projects of that nature, you'd need typically a year's experience, so they can understand how good you are at renting the properties, what your occupancy levels are like, and if you can make money at it. Because there's no point having your rooms 100% full if you lose money. So yeah, I think it's great to be ambitious and optimistic, but it needs to be tempered with realism about what you can actually finance at that stage of your property.
Start small and work your way up to that kind of thing. I understand that.
I think start small, but there's nothing wrong with starting as big as you can for where you are right now. So if you can rent out to 4 tenants rather than 1, and you can get lenders to support that, which in the right circumstances they will, well, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's progressing as fast as you can and not trying to overreach yourself, really.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit more about you now. I mean, obviously we've talked a lot about business, we've talked a lot about what you do, how you work, and obviously giving content to people that actually want to get into that kind of trade. Now, let's talk a little bit about you more personally. Now, I know that you went, we discussed that you went through something quite hard 3 years ago, and your personal life was all over the place, and I assume that actually affected you when it come down to obviously your business and what you was doing. However, we all know, ladies and gentlemen, that on these shows that I do, we all talk about everything to do with your personal life: confidence, fear, self-esteem, and we also talk about mindset. So let's talk about your mindset, Kevin, because you've got a very strong mindset. Even though you come over very soft and you're very much a gentleman, you've got a very strong mindset. Explain to people what happened to you 3 years ago and how you got over that.
Yeah, I got diagnosed with cancer in April 2016, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I dealt with it, and the result I got was that within 8 weeks I'd got rid of 90% of it, and within 20 weeks I'd got rid of 99% of it. Well, now that's 99% according to my consultant, because you know what doctors are like. Now I'd say I was 100% clear within 20 weeks, but he wanted a bit longer before he confirmed that.
Yeah. So
now I started personal development over 30 years ago. I've done courses. I've had a personal mind coach for a number of years. And I'm trained in mindset techniques. So some of the people listening may have heard of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP.
Yeah.
When I got diagnosed with cancer, I knew that I had to think positively about it. I had to have the correct mindset, and it's I guess unless you've actually been in that position where you're sitting in front of a doctor and they're telling you you've got cancer, you never really know how you're going to react to that. And I hope anyone listening never has to find out. But I would imagine that the common thing is to sort of nosedive into a tailspin of negativity. And I knew that was the worst thing I could possibly do. So using the skills and knowledge that I developed over the years, I used some techniques, around affirmations, visualizations, reframing, to actually make that a positive experience.
So if you've got a couple of strategies you can say to people, I'm not saying that they're going through the cancer side of it, but someone that's going through a really tough time or something that's actually, as you said, is nosediving in a pool of negativity, give us a couple of strategies you think that you can say, look, get yourself out of that.
Well, there's a technique called reframing, and it works on the basis that it's not what happens to you, it's the meaning you attach to it. And I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt, an ex-president, a US president's wife, that said, no one can insult you unless you choose to be insulted. So, it's how we interpret meanings. Now, and there's another phrase, every cloud has a silver lining. So whatever the situation, it's trying to find a positive within it, and again, another saying is, opportunities often wear the cloak of a problem. So, but it's easy to focus on the problem and not the seed of opportunity that could be lying within that, if you can only find it. So it's about finding positives, so I'm gonna just tell you, the way I reframed being diagnosed with cancer. I thought, I reframed it to say, well, actually, this is a brilliant opportunity, because now I get to conduct a real life experiment on how I can use my mind to control my body. How lucky am I?
Absolutely. And I love that way of thinking. It was very much that in 2011, when my back was broken, it was like I could have done exactly the same as what you could have done, which is tailspin out of control and just like gone into a complete negative. And but I didn't. I was very much right, this is my time now to actually do something that I can possibly do that no one thought was ever possible. And it was get up off the sofa and actually be able to walk, move forward, and actually get my own business up and running, and then just move forward from that. And this is the thing, it's people like me and you, it's very much that when we look at mindset, it's very much that, we look at for the positives of the solution, the way to get over it, the way to get around it, to move forward, no matter what happens in a life, is a positive, because it makes you the person you are today. Now, do you feel as though that now you've gone through that and that your mindset has changed that with a little bit of help? Do you find that you're a different person in business now? Are you stronger? What is it how it's changed you?
Hasn't changed me at all, really.
Okay.
And it's just given me another body of evidence to confirm what I already believed. So that was it was another bit of proof, probably the most substantial bit of proof. I've had many, but the most substantial bit of proof that you are what you think about, predominantly. So the other point is that I took some on the cancer. I took some chemotherapy. Didn't do it all with my mind. So I had 6 rounds of chemotherapy. My consultant said, you'll need 8, and I said I won't. But I didn't suffer a single debilitating side effect that you normally associate with chemotherapy. And I didn't actually take a day off work at all during that.
Did actually anybody know that you was actually going through that, or did you keep it to yourself and just keep moving forward?
I told everyone.
Oh, you did?
I put it out on Facebook and kept people regularly updated with my progress.
Just saying, look, I can do this, so can you.
Essentially, yeah. So yeah, I mean, and this, I wasn't being heroic, I wasn't being brave, I just didn't feel ill. So chemotherapy had no effect on me whatsoever. But then I pre-programmed my unconscious mind for exactly that outcome. And I engaged, as I've often done, engaged the help of a NLP master practitioner and that's what I would say to someone. If you're struggling with turning it round in your own mind, get a bit of help. Hook up with an NLP master practitioner in your own town, and they'll put some positive stuff into your unconscious mind. And I've been doing that for the best part of 20 years, as and when circumstances dictate that it's beneficial to my mindset to do so.
Yeah. And it's so strong that the fact is you've gone through that, and that's how you saw it and your mindset was set. Because when my dad went through chemo, it was very much it didn't affect him for the first couple of times, and after that he was so weak he couldn't even pick up a glass. And it's so heartbreaking to see someone go from the strongest person you could ever imagine to not even be able to pick up an empty glass. It's you see it and your heart just drops, because you just know that they've given up in their own mind. And once that happens, it's all downhill from there. And that's exactly what happened. But your mindset was so strong that you're getting over this no matter what. I've got too much to do. I've got too much to face, and I've got too many people to help, that you knew that you was going to keep moving forward no matter what.
I mean, the perverse thing is I had more energy, not less, when I was having chemotherapy. Interesting thing. You might, on a similar vein, you might remember the double Olympic champion Michael Johnson from about 25 years ago. Won golds in the 100 and 200 meters, world record holder for years and that. Now, last autumn he had a stroke, which was a surprise to himself mostly, because he's kept himself incredibly fit. He was fortunate enough that he lived near enough hospital to get some treatment pretty quickly, but he still suffered what most people do with stroke: lack of ability to move down one side of your body, restricted movement. Now, he said, okay, I approach this with the same mental attitude that won me gold medals. And and he said that the curious thing, that it took me 20 minutes to do 200 meters that I used to run in 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But within 7 days, he was up and walking, and he's now made a full recovery. Literally 3 or 4 months, he's back in his previous exercise routine. He still doesn't know why it happened.
Yeah.
Because there was no obvious reason why he would get a stroke. He's just probably fit and and healthy, fitter and healthier than almost anyone on the planet. But he still had a stroke. But for me, the interesting thing was not that he had the stroke, but what he did about it. Yeah. And he just said, right, okay, I need to approach this with exactly the same mentality that won me multiple gold medals.
And that's a bit. Sorry, go
on. And that's the difference. As the old quote from Henry Ford from over 100 years ago, Ford Motors: if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much evidence now.
Yeah, there is. And I think it's absolutely wonderful that you've got that mindset, and no matter what happens, you move forward. And for every bad thing, ladies and gentlemen, for every bad thing that happens to you, it happens for a reason. It's to make you learn, it's to make you experience, and it's to grow you stronger. Nobody in this world is a strong person unless they've been through pain, unless they've been through adversity themselves. That's what makes you stronger in your body, in your mind, and everything else that you go through. So what I want to say to you is, if you want to see Kevin and you want to see all our other speakers, I mean, we're going to be at the Empowerment Weekend on the 2nd and 3rd of February, at the Ionic Hotel in London. It was cool. Now, the tickets are from £24.50. So if you work that out realistically, over the space of 2 days, which you're getting 2 full days from like 8 till 8, really, that we're going to be there from, on a Saturday and a Sunday. That's 24 hours in total. And with the 24 hours that you're going to get, it's £24.50 for a ticket. That's £1 an hour. I don't know where else you're going to get top coaches from all around the world, the top speakers you can possibly imagine, that are going to be there for you for £1 an hour. So this is your time to actually you know, earn yourself some money out of just being at this one event, because this could change your life forever. This could change your life in your business. This could change you in your personal life, the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you go about your everyday life. And exactly the same, you know, it's all about mindset, and it's all about taking action after. So I want to say thank you very much to Kevin. It's been absolutely amazing that you've been here. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I'm hoping that you've, you know, I'm sure you have, yeah, given all this information out to everybody else, and I'm hoping that you'll all be there, because, you know, this is just one of many people that are going to be there. You know, it's all about taking care of yourself, taking care of business, and just making sure that you move forward in your life. Now, if you do actually want to come to the Empowerment Weekend, right, all you've got to do is, I'm going to send the link at the moment right in the bottom of the comments. Hang on, my cat has just jogged me. I've just highlighted everything. Okay, so there's the link. I'm just about to put it in the comments, so you've got that. So if you want to click that link, you can actually look up the Yes You Can Inspire to Achieve website. Now, if you don't want to go through the website, but you'd rather just get hold of the actual link, just so you can actually book your ticket today, you know, the tickets are there ready for this weekend. I've just put it in the comments box for you, so, and I can show you exactly what that looks like. So there's the link. All you've got to do is go to If You Can Inspire to Achieve.London. That will take you through to the website to show you exactly what we've got going on and who's going to be there. And if you actually want the link, all you've got to do is click that link to get your tickets. Everything's from £24.50 right up to £198.50. And that's it. That's us done for today. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Is there any last word? Yes, thank you. Is there any last words you'd like to tell the audience?
Yeah.
Any last words you'd like to give the audience here?
I'd say, you know, it's not what happens to you in life. It's how you react to it.
Absolutely fantastic. I think the same way. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll speak to you. I'll be on again tonight with Manji at 8 o'clock. So I'll see you back then, and Kevin, I will see you at the weekend.
Fantastic. Look forward to it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.